So for your final research report, these slides will help you format and prepare a 6 to 10 page single space APA format. While APA format requires you to do double spaced, I want this to be a more realistic business report, so it should be single spaced, just like the slide deck says. Here's an overview of all the pieces to your report. You'll have a cover/title page, an executive summary, followed by the main body of the report, which should include an introduction, which gives us the background or overview of your topic, the research questions that you developed with your group, and the inspiration or why you chose the topic, as well as the report structure, so a few sentences that gives the reader a heads up of what's in the report. For instance, data collection, data analysis, and findings, followed by business implications or recommendations. So you're writing a few sentences to cue the reader what to expect. Then comes the actual body or in-depth discussion on the data collection, data analysis, and your findings. So again, here's where your descriptive statistics and inferential statistics will be laid out. Last is your discussion, which goes over the business implications and recommendations of your report. And then comes your references and works cited. Please make sure to include the page number in the upper right-hand corner of the report. I am not requiring a running head, as it can be difficult to insert sometimes, and I've never really seen it in a business report. So for your cover page and executive summary, each should be on its own. So your first page of the report is your cover page. That'll have the title, your team members' names that contributed to the report, Miracosta College, our Business 204 course number, and our section number. For the date, you can put the exact date of submission, or you can just put December 2017. Your second page of the report will include your executive summary, which is the 1 paragraph, 5 sentence overview of the report. You already did this for your presentation, so you can just copy paste it right in. Make sure it is in paragraph form. It should not be in bullet form. For the main report, that begins on page 3. And to help the reader with flow and organization, please include headings throughout. So perhaps your headings could be introduction, data collection, data analysis, and findings, and then discussion/recommendations. Really, it's like your outline becomes your headings. Now, there is an example paper in Blackboard that you can take a look at. It's generally a good paper. It's not perfect. It's double-spaced when it should have been single-spaced, for instance. Please make sure to write your report in full sentences and paragraphs, not incomplete sentences and bullets or lists. For your tables and figures, they should be within the body of the report, not at the end. So how the layout should look is when you're writing your report text, the text will refer to the table or figure that's going to appear shortly thereafter. That way the reader knows to look for it and that it's coming. By having your visuals next to the text, it allows a reader to understand the content and then see it in an illustration. So after the table or figure appears, you then want to spend about a paragraph or so to explain what's in the table or figure. You cannot assume the reader will understand what you're trying to convey in this image. So make sure to do that. And another way to think of it is, for instance, during a presentation, when you show the figure or table up on the screen, you spend a few sentences or minutes to explain it. So what you would say to describe this table or figure in a presentation, you're just writing it up for the report. So this is an example of what an APA table looks like. You have the label up at the top, table 1. Right underneath is the title, and then your actual table. And if necessary, you'd put a note underneath. So for instance, if you wanted to do a table of your participants, but you wanted to note that we threw out 2 respondents because they left blanks in their questions. So that's how you do a table. And then after the table appears, again, you should have that 1 paragraph that describes, what does the table tell me? Because right now, just looking at this, I don't know what this means. What does 94.2% mean? What's this 6 over here mean? So you need a paragraph that explains the content of the table, what it is you want the reader to understand or walk away with. Here's an example of an APA figure. Not perfect, but general idea. You've got your chart, and then underneath is your label and title. So here's our label figure 1. title, sale of luxury goods in the US, Canada, and Britain. And then you also want to include a short one sentence that gives a bit more description to the figure. This way, if, for instance, at work, when someone is reading your report, they really like this figure and its content, we can just lift the figure with the caption and put it into a PowerPoint presentation, for instance, just like this one. Again, after the figure appears, you want a one paragraph or so underneath that describes, what does this mean? When I look at this, I don't know what I'm supposed to walk away with, so you want to explain it. Now, some issues with this chart, though, or this figure, is that you should have the table or the title up near the top, and we do need some axes labels on the side, because I don't know what these numbers here mean. It could be in dollars, it could be in millions, and then here, I mean, it's kind of clear it's the year, but you should have an axis that says year, for instance. All right, so for your discussion, this is the so what. You should summarize the main ideas from the body and include the business implications. How is it relevant to your audience? Now, to do that, you have to pick an audience. So, for instance, if your audience is administrators at Miracosta, or perhaps your audience is small businesses in the local area, you want to make sure that it's clear who your report is written for, and that then you link it to recommendations or next steps for this particular audience. You'll include what next steps they should take based on your findings. Your discussion should answer your research question that you presented at the start of the report, and your recommendations are essentially the solution to the problem or situation. Include any new questions that are inspired by the research, and then make sure to include secondary sources throughout to support your discussion. For your writing style, because this is a professional report, please make sure to use third person. This report, this study, the researchers, etc. Do not use personal pronouns, I, we, me, ours, for instance. You'll want to use specific facts and figures from research and secondary sources because we're an objective report. You do not want to be subjective, so avoid emotional or subjective terms like always, never, amazing, fantastic. You don't need to oversell or use flowery language if you're using real information. And then for your secondary sources, I recommend summarizing or paraphrasing more often than quoting. Avoid quoting where you've got more than 10% of your word count in quotation marks. If that's the case, you've got more quotes than actual content. It's no longer your report. It becomes a mix-up, mishmash of other people's content. So be aware. Now, how do we use in-text citations for APA, right? So this is a good reference for future classes too. APA is frequently used in business. If you're using short quotes, which are 40 words or less, you need the author, the year, and the page number. And here's 3 examples of how you can include this appropriate in-text citation for a particular quote. You can have it at the end, all in parentheses, or perhaps you have the author and the year, and then you have the page number at the end. If you have a long quote, 40 words or more, you actually want to indent in a block the long quote by itself like this. No quotation marks needed, but you still need the author, the year, and the page number at the end. Oops, wrong way. For in-text citations for information that you're summarizing or paraphrasing, you want to make sure to include the author and the year. So we here have Jones 1998, or you can have it at the end in parentheses. And here's an example of 3 or more authors with a quote and summarizing. So here we've got our quotation marks followed by the authors, the year, and the page. Here we've got 4 authors. The first time it appears, you want to name all the authors, but after that, whenever you repeat that same citation again, you can use the first author's name and then et al, followed by the year. So that lets the reader know we're using the same citation, but you don't have to name all the authors over and over. So that's how you will use in-text citations. Now, last but not least, for your references or works cited, this is the last page of the report. So you can see right there, you already have page 1, page 2, and page 3. So really your report, at a minimum, has to be 3 pages in between. Right here is the reference for the textbook. So you should be citing the textbook because that's the content we've been using all semester to put together your report. So whenever you're referring to any statistical content that you can pull from the textbook, make sure to cite the text and include this in your references at the end. Based on most of the projects I've seen, folks generally use online resources. So here's 2 examples of how you could list your reference. You'll have the author, the year, the title of the article, and then the title of the online periodical or source, and then retrieve from with the link. So here's an example: author, year, title of the article, title of the periodical, and then retrieve from link. If it's a government site, you want to cite the government department. Generally, they don't always list the author. So government department followed by the year, the title, and again, retrieve from some link. So that's how you'll do your references or works cited at the end. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, that's how we will format and prepare our final research report.